for that. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dani, D-A-N-I, Wilhite. My name sign is DW. Kind of looks like important, but with a D and a W. I am a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. And I also passed my BEI for Illinois and have had that converted to Missouri too. So I'm really excited to start that journey as well. Along with me is not only my colleague, but one of my friends, Amanda Miller. Amanda, if you want to say hi.
Sorry, the dog wanted to introduce herself too. So I am Amanda Miller. I went through an ITP and graduated back in 2018. I started interpreting right away. So this is year 8 for me. I do some community work, but most of my interpreting has been in education and in middle school education at that. So,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate that. So the reason that we're here today is not only do I want to introduce Mona Jawad today, who is the founder of ASL Aspire, which is an organization that really prioritizes STEM literacy for deaf and hard of hearing learners. I wanted to very quickly tell you about the impact that her organization and platform has had within my classroom. And this is especially important because I am the teacher of the deaf in the room, and Amanda Miller is actually my ASL interpreter. And so we get to share different perspectives from 2 different roles, 2 different fields. And I want to share that practicality with you and those observations so you can see how profound or kind of make those connections yourself as Mona introduces the platform. And you guys will have the opportunity to ask questions, navigate demos. So we're really excited. Like I said, my name is Dani. One of my favorite classes to teach is English and also science. I really love teaching science. And like most TODs, the issue or the barrier that I have is that I have 2 choices. I can have our students go into general education, right? If they have no language, say they have language deprivation, because I really want them to learn these amazing skills and these vocabulary words. Or they get to stay in the DHH room where I'm modifying and differentiating, and I'm being pulled a lot of different directions. We have different communication modalities, different needs, maybe different diagnoses. And that's really hard to decide. Do I have a watered down curriculum for deaf and hard of hearing learners? Or do I take my deaf and hard of hearing learners and take them to gen ed and hope that we can support them in there? And sometimes those choices don't feel very fair, but that's the reality that a lot of TODs and deaf and hard of hearing students are facing today. So I had received an email from a local university that connected Mona and I, and she brought this platform to my classroom. And at that time, I had students that were very, very different. I teach middle school, so I had students 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Some of them were ASL, like out there, right? Some of them were simcomming, learning ASL, and some of them had almost no language at all, and they're in one classroom. And so the reason I'm telling you this is these students have made so much progress and really enjoyed being able to learn STEM grade level content and vocabulary while being able to engage at a level that was really appropriate for them and really use this platform as a differentiated, I would call it a station. And so for my classroom, it really empowered me as the educator to meet each student's IEP goals within like 2 students per station and allowed me to jump to station. So I might provide a mini lesson on vocabulary and reading and literacy activities because as a TOD, you're always teaching reading and language no matter what the class is. So I might be working on context clues in one station while my other station was actually playing video games. And it was so cool to be able to say my classroom was playing video games and they were practicing with grade level vocabulary. And the first question I get as a TOD is, let me see your curriculum. Are you following standards? And Mona had thought of this. She had it all. It was essentially, it felt like I had a script for me of like, it's following the standards. Here's the vocabulary word. It wasn't watered down, but it really gave us the endpoint of what students should be able to do by the end of a unit. And to give you a very quick synopsis, I was teaching the digestive system and teaching like I want to say cellular respiration, we weren't there yet, but teaching cells and biology. And it was really a great opportunity when you have students who they know they eat, but that's it. I don't know what happens after I eat. It doesn't matter. Or they're eating Takis, those hot chips, and they're getting stomach aches. They might not know why is that happening. And to be able to bridge the reality of what they're eating, teach them the science, scaffold that language, and ultimately get at least exposure as a scaffold to where they need to be was really quite magical. So I want to pass it over a little bit from Amanda Miller's perspective and just kind of hear from the educational interpreter. What did that look like for someone who wasn't leading the instruction, but just as important and supporting that process? I agree, Zane.
Yeah, so my internet does seem to be a little bit choppy. So if at any point you guys can't understand me, please stop me so we can figure that out. So from an educational interpreter standpoint, it was, I think, magical also kind of describes the experience. There's a lot of work that goes into searching for vocabulary, and especially when you're really trying to kind of be on par with those specific STEM signs and what deaf people are becoming adults and using out in the community, because that's what we want our kids learning, right? We don't want them learning complete different things than they'll ever see in the community. So trying to kind of build that language for when they are adults and go out and hopefully do big things. But it can be really challenging because there's so many different resources out there. So to have a direct resource, Mona had it all put together, right? There's videos we could watch of deaf people who are in the field, who use these signs every day at work. And then to see our students who are typically categorized as like behind or below grade level signing that type of vocabulary was really cool. We were very fortunate to have Mona as well as a couple of the deaf professionals come to our school and talk with the kids and do some activities, and to really just watch that connection of like, they're deaf like me and they're doing big things, I saw really give our kids some hope, because that isn't always how they feel. They don't always see deaf successful people that they can look up to and say, I can be like that. So yeah, just a lot of different things from the interpreter standpoint, but I would say the most impactful was um, our ability to collaborate with ease, right? We all had access to this program. And so we all went into the classroom knowing exactly what we wanted to sign for these vocabulary words. There was no additional time outside of the classroom or no time that we're taking away from the kids in the classroom really quick to all get on the same page about how we're going to sign these different vocabulary words. We just all went in the classroom and we were on in sync, and I really think that impacted the students as well, that they already seen that like we were all on the same page, we were doing the same exact thing. So it was really cool to see.
Yeah, I would agree. Amanda, I was going to ask us to go over norms, but because we have such a small group team, I'm going to ask everyone in this meeting, are we okay with being a little bit more lax and maybe the camera comes on if there's a question, just because it is such a small group, more of an intimate group? The only thing maybe we might ask is like one speaker at a time, so be muted unless you're speaking. Um, Other than that, is that okay if we kind of have it a little bit different? Would that work? Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, I'm actually going to introduce Mona. So, Amanda, I'm going to unpin you right now, and I'm going to pin Mona so everyone can see her and she can tell us a little bit about herself, and we'll get into it. Okay, and I think we're going to have an interpreter switch. One moment. Thank you guys for being so patient. All right, there we go. Welcome, Mona. We're so excited to have you.
Hi, Danny. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here too. And thank you so much for the very sweet introduction. It was a complete honor to work with your classroom back in the fall and to just see how much your students grew as well. I think every teacher of the deaf has such a special heart, and every interpreter in there as well. And we're really just very honored to be part of the process. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a third year PhD student at WashU in St. Louis, studying speech and hearing science. And I got into the field because my brother is hard of hearing. He was born that way because of a genetic disorder. And so, watching his journey and seeing how much that part of his identity has impacted him really inspired me to want to go and make the world a little bit of a better and easier place for people like him. So I'm just going to go through a little bit about what ASL Aspire is and how it came to be, because this has been an enormously collaborative effort. We started at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign and have since then spread all across the nation in terms of our team members. My co-founder Aisha is here in the audience with us as well, and she is such an integral part of all that we do. And so, yeah, I will go ahead and just start talking through some of all this.
And while Mona is working on that, I noticed that my internet is kind of going out. So I'm actually going to turn my screen off, but I will be monitoring the chat. There's also a Q&A, but please get as much information as you can. Ask all the questions, audience. We want this to be impactful for you. So I'm going to turn my camera off, but I'm here and I'm ready to support.
Thanks, Danny. Fantastic. Okay. So ASL Aspire, our mission is to make STEM more accessible for deaf and hard of hearing students and their educators through games. And really, this project came out of a single question that me and my team asked back in 2021. How do we design for accessible STEM resources and technology? There are so many wonderful online platforms that exist out there today, whether it be Khan Academy or IXL or just wonderful videos on YouTube that people have put together. But so few of them are truly made with deaf and hard of hearing kids in mind. And so this all started really during COVID when lockdown happened. And suddenly the need for online STEM learning tools really skyrocketed. I was an undergraduate at the time, and I had the opportunity to interview a number of deaf and hard of hearing educators. I was already in a lab that was kind of connected with the space. And we started having conversations around the question of STEM and STEM learning. And there was one conversation I still remember with Dr. Uma Soman, who worked at the Carl Medicine Clinic for the Deaf in Champaign, where she said something that just kind of was a light bulb moment for me. She said, first of all, two of the biggest barriers that she saw to STEM learning were a lack of online resources, right? So again, it was lockdown. They were trying to engage their kids in something and realizing that there was this huge gap in the space. And the second thing was that much of the ASL STEM vocabulary itself was still developing because of all the systemic barriers to science that deaf and hard of hearing individuals have faced in the past. And so as we were talking, she said this line verbatim: "I wish more play-based tools existed that were designed for my students." So I sat with that for a couple days and did about a dozen more interviews with teachers of the deaf because this idea was really starting to scratch at me. And over and over and over again, I began to hear this repeated thing of the thing that makes their students light up most in class has something to do with play. I would ask these teachers, what do your students enjoy the most? What makes them, sit up from their desks and stop putting their, heads down? And it was online games like Kahoot. It was the opportunity to compete, the opportunity to play together and be in an environment where they could really show their skills, but also not have so much risk. It wasn't about the grades. It wasn't about, failing. It was about having the space to make mistakes and try again in a way that was more engaging and fun than just a worksheet. So I went ahead and put together a team. Aisha was the first one who I reached out to, and she was a computer science student at the University of Illinois. Now she's a graduate of her master's. And we found a group of students who were also really passionate about making education happen and making it accessible. And so we put together what would be the first prototype of ASL Aspire with the help of these individuals. We really understood that, when we're building this, it's not about building for the deaf community. I'm very aware, like as a hearing founder, that I should never be the one to ever make the videos for our platform. Anything with sign language should come from the deaf community. And these incredibly generous individuals that you see here were willing to give their time to doing this. And since then, they've joined our team as employees and have helped us build it up. But these scientists were, many of them, the first in their field to even graduate. So Dr. Ann Logan was the first deaf horticulturist. Dreek has been working at the NIH doing these amazing things. And Danny mentioned that, we have our scientists come and do school visits. And all four of these guys have gone to different schools around the nation, including St. Louis, to share their stories and to talk about their journeys to STEM. Because for students, it's really not just about the content, but also about who is creating it. And if they can see role models who have gone forward and have really, ascended through all the barriers that were in front of them, then they can be inspired to do the same thing. So we put this app together, and in the beginning, it was a vocabulary app purely. You had a sign language term and you had an English word, and the games helped kids match them. We ran our initial pilot test with Franklin Middle School in Champaign-Urbana, and as you guys can see, it was still COVID. We all had our masks on, but this was a lovely group to work with. We learned that vocabulary alone in isolation really just is not enough for a tool to have. It was good for a supplement, and maybe it'd make a fun day or two of lessons. But if we wanted to really make an impact and make a STEM resource that could be long lasting, we needed to have the actual content too, the lessons. And because we already had the scientists with us, we realized we were missing an opportunity if we didn't allow them to, use those skills and create those kinds of videos. So since then, we've shifted. We went ahead and created just kind of a big compilation of next generation science standards. We got teachers' feedback on what was most important to them, and we created actual animated lessons that taught kids those standards. They would still get the vocabulary pre-teaching and get the chance to try those games out, but the real learning was going to also happen with those content videos. So the games, which I'll demo in a little bit, like I said, they're all about helping to support that bilingual learning. We have scientists who have many different cultural backgrounds, different linguistic backgrounds, but all united in the fact that they're part of the deaf community, who the kids can kind of switch through and see these different types of language models. And then they're able to match those signs with the words and to also quiz themselves on the content that, is coming from those national standards. And we also realized that teachers were going to need something to be able to track the progress of their students. So in the current version of ASL Aspire, you can see the quiz results from, these different standards. You can kind of see how the kids are performing on a word-to-word basis, and ultimately, hopefully, have it as a better classroom intervention tool. So we're really happy to be partnering with a number of schools around the nation right now, from Chicago public schools all the way to here in St. Louis, and schools in New York and Hawaii as well. And to start to make a difference beyond, like I said, just the initial little prototype that we had. So today is all about hopefully, connecting you with this resource and also getting some of your feedback on what really matters to you in a STEM tool and to see if we can somehow improve this together as a community. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing for a moment.
And I think we're going to have an interpreter switch, which is a really great time anyway, because I have some questions.
Great.
1 second. Oh, did I not get it? There we go. Sorry, my computer is freezing up. Okay. There we go. I'm actually going to read this comment first. I see a comment says, as a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing who is now back in school and taught science in Philly, this is incredible. I wish I had that back or had this back then. I would agree. That's kind of, I'm going to call it something. I didn't coin this term, Mona, but when I think of teaching, I find that a lot of TODs, including myself, fall into what I would call the vocab trap, right? That's where we think, oh my gosh, we have all of these language gaps to fill. And so we see this vocabulary list and oh my gosh, we got to get them caught up. But we miss all of the incidental learning opportunities and the connections and the generality. I know for me as a teacher, literacy is everything, right? We live in a world that uses reading and writing. That's a life skill that really any career that you'll have, you're going to use. And so what I really loved about this, Mona, and just kind of adding to that is it would have been really easy or a big oversight just to create a game that is pick the sign, right? But the fact that you had so many different skills and language modalities that they kind of had to switch gears. And science, no, I mean, I call it, I didn't coin this either, but like the fast five or fluency is really getting that practice in, like the finger spelling and the seeing the sign, seeing it written, and not just a word written, but seeing it in context with the definition. They really were exposed to not only the vocab, but those concepts over and over again. And so that was one thing that really excited me, Mona. It didn't feel so much like a vocab trap, while recognizing that you're still building this platform. It's not done. And so the more feedback you get from TODs and educational interpreters and maybe students from themselves, I'll be really excited to see more literacy built into that. And also, as you mentioned, there are so many deaf that are in this platform or around the world that might have be the first ones to graduate college just simply because of accessibility. And so I'm really excited that you saw a problem and empowered the deaf through this platform and through a collaborative approach to build it with deaf consultation, with deaf language models. And as you said, because it's my favorite thing, is for the first time or very limited, my students saw themselves in the curriculum. And that doesn't happen. And I don't work in a deaf school. I work in a site-based program in a mainstream school. And so that was really important. And I think you just did a really nice job at recruiting and really working on those skills.
Yeah, no, thanks. And I mean, really, it's our deaf team themselves is really the core of what we do. They're the heart of what we do. And so it's them that I'm super grateful to. It's the other way around. And to your point, I think it was feedback that got us to realize not to fall into the vocab trap, both from teachers, but also from students, because I remember we were at the Indiana School for the Deaf. And the students were playing the vocab games, and it was very early back in the day. It was like a matching game or something of the kind. And a student came up to me and she goes, "This doesn't mean sell. This just means ball. Like, this sign where it's just your hands together." And she's like, "You can't tell that that's sell just by, seeing it in a little, square in video on the screen." And so it was at that point that we realized these words need context, right? Especially because like so much in sign language is about the context and is about making sure that these kids are using the words, not just like memorizing them and having them in some container in their head. So yeah, our users have never been shy about feedback with us, and we're hoping that that continues because that's how we can actually improve and get better.
If I could just go back, I know you're going to show us really awesome information, but how did you get from this idea to actually recruiting not only deaf participants, but participants with a specialty in each field? Can you tell us really quickly what was that process like?
Yeah, that was definitely it's a process we're continuing today because the more people you meet, the more people kind of connect you to those spaces. But I was really fortunate to start in a university setting, which meant we had a deaf scientist who is actually at the University of Illinois. His name is Colin Waldy, who studies physics. He's a really cool person. Definitely look him up. And so getting to talk with him and then getting to speak with, I met with Joel Barish at a point, who does a lot of international work for deaf communities. They were just so excited to hear that somebody was interested in creating a STEM tool. And I think, you know, that made it easier for them to kind of pass the word along and help us to find these people. But so much of it just felt like serendipity at the same time. You know, like being able to meet with Dr. Ann Logan and all the people who have joined us since, they all came at the right time. And some of them reached out to us, some of them we reached out to. But this community is so generous. This community is so passionate about passing it forward. And so I think just being able to, you know, find them and recruit them and bring them on has been really wonderful.
Okay, well, Mona, I'm excited to kind of see the program, as I'm sure many people are. And then after we go through kind of navigating that platform and demoing, could we open up for some questions? And I'm sure that will lead to more kind of navigating the platform as well. And I'm going to turn my camera off just because I can see myself glitching.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and demo the ASL Aspire platform. And we'll go ahead and put the link in the chat for you all if you'd like to create an account at the same time. All you need is your Google email, and you can create both a teacher and student account. Okay, without further ado, let me open this up. So ASL Aspire has two different dashboards. We have a teacher dashboard and a student dashboard system that coordinate together much like Google Classroom does. So for the teacher side, you just go ahead and hit sign in with Google. And you're brought to this main screen where you can see you can create new class cards for any classroom that you're interested in. So if you wanted a class that was specifically about physics, you could create that. We have some, you know, little classes we set up beforehand here as well. And these classrooms are going to be all about assigning the lessons and games that we've created with ASL. So for example, here in our curriculum library and also on YouTube, because we want our content itself to be free forever for everybody, we have these different subjects that you guys can click through. Biology, chemistry, and math is what we're currently working on. We want to add physics and social sciences in the future, but you know, content takes a while to create. And each one of these topics has two things associated with it. First of all, it has the animated video. So for example, this one is all about how plants grow. It hits those next generation science standards around plants and learning. And it has captions and ASL content, along with different animations to help the students make those connections. And like I said before, each one of these is matched with a content expert who is themselves deaf and hard of hearing. So Dr. Ann Logan is a horticulturist. She's the one who does these. So all of our content is there, the vocabulary is with it. And if you want to assign that lesson to students, you just go over to this Create Assignment Maker over here, where you can click that very same one or any other one that you're interested in. And because we know that not all students necessarily need to get the same content, you can also create groups for your students so that if you have some that are at a different language level or you want them to be learning 2 different subjects, you can add them to those groups and organize your assignments through there. So this is what it looks like on the teacher side. And a little bit later, after we do the QA, we're going to ask you guys some questions about this assignment creator because, like I mentioned, our ability to create content is limited. We come out with about 1 or 2 modules every month or 2. But we know that you all have subjects that you want to teach that may not necessarily be represented here. So because of that, we are going to be talking a little later about a new custom assignment creator that we'll be coming out with this summer that will help you guys be able to kind of interact with a broader range of subjects. So that's what it looks like on the teacher's perspective. If we go ahead back, this is going to be the student platform. So students see the same kind of like class overview, and then they can click on the same module that you guys have seen kind of tracked throughout that curriculum library and throughout the assignment maker. So they get a quick preview of what vocabulary they're going into, and then we start the lesson over here. So the first thing that students do is take a pre-quiz. They see the sign, they see an icon, and they see all of the answers with the ASL answers also enabled if they want to hover over that. And they go through and just, select the answer that they think is best as a pre-quiz. And see that reinforced afterwards.
Mona, as a teacher, the fact that you have sorry, this is Danny. The fact that you have a pre-test just makes my heart sing because often we're required to have this data to inform instruction. So that you have this, it really solidifies for us the proof of concept.
Yes, absolutely. And we have all of that data available in the teacher dashboard as well for, if you want to be able to report it or put it in an IEP. That is what we were hoping for. Okay, so once students complete the pre-quiz, they go and actually learn the vocabulary that they're going to need for the lesson, which will be a little up here. So in this, what we call flashcards section, the students are introduced to each one of the words through the video, which they can change the speed of if they want to slow down the sign, an icon, and also the definition, which is going to be done in sign language as well. And we'll just quickly get through these. Now, if you have students that, really just are going to spam this right-click button, we do have a mechanism to help them continue learning regardless, which is here in the arcade. So this is where the games part of it comes in. So we have 3 different games right now that are available for vocabulary learning. We have others that are going to be available for more content-specific learning, like the Food Web has its own specific game coming out soon. But these games are the ones that are made to reinforce bilingual literacy. So for example, we have the Maze Runner game here. So in this one, students have a little character that they can run around with. And the goal is for them to find a coin and to pick up as many as they can before the timer runs out. And students really like to compete in this one and see, how many coins each ones can get and, maybe sit next to each other and give each other advice on that. And in order to pick up a coin, they have to answer a question, which will either have a sign language term, an icon, or the definition up here. So in this case, it was the English definition, but sometimes it will be the sign language one instead. It's just randomized and based on what students are getting wrong and right more often. So if we went and hit another coin, yep, here you can see that it's going to be more the sign that's going to be up here instead. So we also have 2 other games that have the same idea, where it's going to be presenting that multiple choice question, switching out the answer type between, icon, definition, English, ASL, and tracking all the while which one the students are getting right more often, so that the games can adapt to that. So once they finish practicing in the arcade, in order to move on, even if they clicked very quickly through here, they're still going to have to take a post quiz and ace it before they can move on to the lesson content here. That means that they'll have to go back, practice more, go through this slowly at their own pace if they realize they're missing a word, and then come back and do this vocab post quiz and go on. So once they're finished here, they will go ahead and take a content pre-quiz, which is similar to what you guys saw for the vocab, but more tailored for next generation science standards. So asking about, what is the purpose of photosynthesis, and then those answers. They'll watch the video in this lesson house and get a post quiz on that as well. And all that data is sent to the teacher dashboard for progress reporting. So this is a quick demo of our platform. We'll put links to the chat if you're interested in signing up and creating your own account. We do have 2 free lessons that you are welcome to check out with your students. And I am happy to take questions now before we go into the feedback part that we'll be asking from you all.
Sure. Just for my knowledge. Oh, there we go. Interpreter switch. So 1 second. Because I have so many questions. Does anyone have questions before I monopolize this time? I see it's there.
Sorry. I would be curious. So some of my students, I was just wondering about like archaeology and kind of like that side of it, because a lot of the environmental science that I taught did a lot of like archaeology, looking at fossils, all those things. So I was curious if you have that included as well.
Great question. Thanks, Jane. So archaeology isn't currently included, but if you were teaching that and were interested in doing so, our custom assignment creator would allow you to kind of get down that pathway and add in your own vocab to do that. We have heard paleontology, archaeology suggested before, so down the line you might see some official videos coming out from us on that, but not currently.
Thank you. Very exciting.
Thanks.
If Amanda's still available, I want to hear from the interpreter perspective as they're supporting in the classroom. I just want to hedge with, we know that educational interpreting looks very different than interpreting in the agency. So I just want to hedge within my classroom, the educational interpreting process can look different. So Amanda, if you are available, I'd like to kind of hear your perspective and an opportunity to ask questions from your profession.
Yes, I am still here. I'm really just taking a lot in. I think there's been a lot of like changes and improvements since we tried the program. So I'm so excited to explore this again with all of the new things that have been added. I don't know if I have any specific questions off the top of my head. As someone who has tried it, I think as someone who hadn't tried it, I would have a lot of questions about how it might affect like collaboration within the team and preparation for student material and all of those things. But I got to experience that firsthand. So I guess actually I am curious, Mona, have you gotten feedback from other interpreters that you've worked with on if and or how it's affected their ability to like collaborate with TODs and prep in order to like work with students with that very specific material?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we hear on that is just the fact that it's all available in the curriculum library is helpful, because they can go through and just have, that immediate access to, okay, this is the packet of words that we're working on. and master those signs right before, the class starts, so that there's no ambiguity in what they're going to be like working on, which I think is actually something you guys mentioned a little bit earlier. But yeah, it's just like eliminating those barriers to communication by making sure the signs are all there. And that they also know, like, okay, this is what the students are going to be working on, and this is the games they're going to play and how I can support them. So it's all about kind of that pre-prep and that planning phase that's really supported with this platform.
Yeah, I will
Great
say
question.
that was something that was really, I think, profound for us is Danny and I have a newer working relationship, but we have both really dedicated a lot of time to getting on the same page and making sure we're communicating for the betterment of the students. And a lot of that time tends to happen outside of the classroom. We're taking time out of our plan, or we're staying after, or we're showing up early, or whatever it may be, to have these conversations to make sure that we can be on the same page for our students. And so to have a resource that we both can just individually work on and not have to set aside that time to collaborate, I think was so helpful.
We're super glad to hear it. Yeah, I think that was really the intention of that design. So I'm glad that it worked for your classroom.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, just with observations, I would agree. And I think that you put it much more pragmatic, is that it was nice that our interpreters could have access to, this is the skill. So I would provide like their learning target for the day and then their IEP goal. So in my mind, interpreters really need to have that in order to provide that interpreting with fidelity. And so with them knowing what the IEP goal was and what students were expected to do independently and have access to this vocabulary, I think that's what made the classroom structure with this curriculum so impactful, is that we knew what the end goal. And I really think it ironically helped with classroom management also. And so for one case, I had a station, Mona, where I was teaching, maybe providing a little bit more scaffolding. Like, for example, you said cell earlier, and that's a really hard concept for students because it can feel abstract because it's not something you see on the day to day or you touch or realize you're touching. And so they might need a little bit more scaffolding. And might need more models with that, where other students were like, yeah, we get it, cells. Oh, I already knew this. And so having these stations and having also this platform as its own station, it's like the kids were really excited about it. They were sitting next to each other like, oh my gosh, where are you at? Oh, you got that wrong. Oh my gosh. It was really exciting because it really helped build the relationship between myself as a professional too, because kids are constantly told, put this away, you can't have this. And the fact, whether we like it or not, is technology is evolving so quickly. And it's how can we keep up, or how can we evolve with it? And to see students excited to use their Chromebook to enhance their learning was really, really a cool thing in our class. I did have a question for you. If I am a TOD in a rural area, or say that I'm a teacher of the deaf that only provides resource level. So that means maybe some of these students are in a special education setting and I only see them for a couple 100 minutes a week. How might someone like that implement this program? What would that look like? And how might they justify use of this curriculum?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, many students do go to rural schools where technology isn't necessarily going to be that accessible. We have tried to make it as, lightweight and computer friendly as possible. So if you have anything from a Chromebook all the way to like an old fashioned iPad, it should still function. But with that being said, there's some cases where there just won't be enough technology to go around for all the students. And we want to make sure that this is still something useful for them as well. So in that case, like I mentioned, we do have all of our videos on YouTube. So that's all of the vocab, all of the content. And so that's definitely worth checking out for teachers who might just have a smart board or might just have one piece of technology that they can offer for a full classroom. You can still have those discussions around the content. You can still kind of teach that vocabulary. You just might not have as much access to the games piece of it. On the other hand, if you have short time periods with the kids, so you said like about 100 minutes a week, I think the nice thing about this is that it is something that students can progress with at their own pace. So we've had in some cases classrooms where ASL Aspire was given more as a like homework tool. So, you know, the teacher can sit down with them and introduce the subject, do whatever focused teaching needs to happen in that, you know, those very precious like time periods that they have with the student. But then if the student has access to technology outside of the classroom, they can continue to use the platform at their own pace. You know, maybe practice it with a parent, maybe practice it with a family member who can sit down with them and walk through those. And that not only really is going to be good for the student, but it's also good because, you know, the family can see exactly what the student is working on and get involved with that piece. So that's usually how we see it used in those two scenarios.
Yeah, my last question, because I definitely want to hear from other people. Actually, it's two. I love the family engagement piece. I think that's a big barrier and a gap that can improve upon. And so, does this platform kind of have like a welcome letter to families of like, this is how you can participate with your child? And is there like a minimum amount of time that students need to use this for fidelity?
Yeah, so we don't have like a automatic welcome letter, but because we do work so closely with the people who like engage with our platform, we usually end up having training sessions in the beginning. So if parents sign up for our platform, they're immediately given like a little link to, hey, come hop on a Zoom call with us. Let's talk through this. Let's make sure that you know all the features. And so that's been really helpful for some. And it also is good because then the parents can, like I said, if they don't know ASL, that's going to be okay because the platform is going to have all that support for them available. And so what was the second part of your question? I feel like I'm missing some. Oh, you said minimum amount of time for fidelity. Okay, great. So we are still running studies to make sure that I can give you an honest number on that. As a researcher, I don't want to throw something out there and just say it without proof. But we have seen that the typical amount of time that students use this in the classroom is about 15 to 20 minutes, about 3 times a week. And that's where we see on our platform the most growth. Because students, you know, if they're using it repetitively, that's going to help with that memory piece of it. They're going to be engaging with it a little bit more constantly. And the students can continue to return to the lessons as many times as they need. So it's not too hard to make it kind of last throughout the whole week. But yeah, so I would say about that 15 to 30 minute mark is what we see has worked for people, but we will hopefully have some more data back stuff on that later.
Thank you. And I definitely want to hear from the audience too, because I'm sure they have really good questions too.
Yeah, I definitely welcome any questions you all have.
While they're thinking, has anyone seen anything like this before? Has seen a platform like this specific to STEM with deaf language models?
Or if there's other resources that you guys already use, we would love to hear about that so we can kind of understand what's out there and what, you know, how we can contribute to the ecosystem.
I certainly have never seen anything like this. Honestly, even just outside of STEM, I would say the closest thing resource wise that I utilize would be DCMP, which is, I'm going to mess up the acronym. Described Caption Media Programming, I think is what it is. But they have a lot of resources where I'm not positive that they have deaf signers. I know some of them are, but I don't think all of them are. With just like video material and stuff like that. With typically it has like the picture in picture So there is at least the kind of that equitable accessibility to what the other students are watching and or seeing. But I would say that's probably the closest resource I have that would be anything similar to this.
That's great. That's really good to know. Yeah, I see some comments in the chat. Yeah, DCMP is really, really great. We love them. Atomic Hands and ASL Core are also two great resources. ASL Core was the organization we first reached out to when we were starting all this, because there was very little, references online for signs. And they were extremely kind and generous with us and just gave us open access to our videos. And before we had our scientists, that was the first place that we were sourcing our videos from. But yeah, ASL Core is fantastic. We always love to promote them. And same with Atomic Hands. They also do great work. Yeah, thanks, Jane, for putting those in there.
Oh, and we're going to have an interpreter switch. Oh, I see a comment too. Quantum ASL. I don't know if I knew about that, Lisa.
Physics
Hi,
concepts.
this is Lisa.
Hi.
Hi. Mona, have you heard of Quantum ASL?
I don't think so, actually. I'll have to look them up.
It's on YouTube,
Mhm.
and they have a plethora of physics concepts, chemistry, mostly related to physics, though.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. We will definitely check that out and encourage anybody watching here, please check them out as well.
Yeah, and I want to hear from Lisa if she's comfortable with it. If not, that's totally fine. But Lisa, I would like to hear from you as an educational perspective is how do you see your role aligning with this platform? And do you think that having access to a platform like this would strengthen your interpreter clarity of message and being able to support DHH students?
So I stumbled across ASL Aspire before this evening and played around with it and absolutely loved it. I was a teacher for the deaf and hard of hearing for several years, and now I'm an interpreter. As an interpreter, just going through it myself and seeing the concepts is extremely beneficial. I used it as a resource as well. And I think it's something that a district would have to adopt to get, the standardization of signs amongst, the students and interpreters. But that's with everything else. I've used ASL Core, I've used Atomic Hands, and I use them all interchangeably for myself so that I can provide, different ideas and concepts for the students that I've interpreted biology and chemistry, mostly a little bit of physics. But as a TOD, I think it's absolutely amazing. I guess what I'm saying is, as an interpreter, I feel my hands are tied. I can't use it how I would really want to use it. But one thing I did with my students is something that you're doing is I'm going to Atomic Hands, I'm going to ASL Core so that I can find those signs and give those students those signs. A lot of my students will get a vocabulary list from their instructors. And so I go through and see what I can do myself and see how I can, give the concept to them. And then I actually give them the link to those signs so that they can use it as a resource for themselves. But I absolutely love this idea of interaction and using deaf role models. And, it just, you see the students go, oh, I can do this. That's me. That's me on the screen, like they're seeing people just like them. And, it's neat to see their eyes light up. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that, Lisa. we're glad that you gave it a try too. That's really exciting. Like I said, we'll put the link in the chat a little bit later if anybody else would like to. But yeah, I think that's really what this is all about, is trying to make things easier and more streamlined, because interpreters and TODs, you guys are doing truly the Lord's work. Like, you guys are showing up every day, putting in the time outside of your classes, and making these resources possible for your students. And all that we want to do is make that just a little bit easier for you all. And I see this really great conversation in the chat going on about how, science can inform self-independence and advocacy, especially in the medical system, for students. And yeah, if anybody wants to talk a little about that, I'd love to hear more about what you guys see with students in that sense, and how our tool could help support that, because I would love to take that back to our team and talk about that with them.
I second what Jane said.
Go for it.
Go
Jenny.
ahead, Jane.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to second. Take it away.
No. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, a big thing with like reproductive health, I think it would be so powerful and so important for the community to really have that, especially just, we know historically women have been viewed in certain lights, and having an additional barrier, I think, can be really hard for women to advocate for themselves, especially deaf women, with what they need. And any deaf person, so especially in the LGBTQ community, there are so many people within the deaf community that overlap with that. And so I think it would be really powerful to add that in the future. But of course, I know that takes time and work. And then the only other thing I was going to add that would be really interesting I don't know if they've ever done maybe like a series with audiology or with, hearing science specifically, and advocating and talking about what those appointments can look like, especially because, like, recently I just had a patient who, he was incredible. He and I were able to sign with each other, which was really great. And he was sent, because he lost his job, to another facility, and they made really bad ear molds for him, and he just wants his ear molds so that he can use his hearing aids to access environmental sounds and just be aware of his environment. And he obviously knew how to advocate for himself, because he was, I think, 60 something. But I just think about like teens and describing, what they want and all of those things, and like what an audiology appointment means for them. And is that actually comfortable for me? Because you're asking me, and I'm just going to say yes or no sometimes. I think maybe understanding the science behind their own hearing loss can be really powerful. And knowing, like, yeah, maybe I listen and talk. Maybe I use sign. Maybe I also talk. Maybe I SimCom. But I am deaf, or I am hard of hearing. And understanding what that means in a medical sense and a scientific sense can kind of make them better advocates for themselves in the actual like doctor's appointment, so that the ENTs don't just like override the situation.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I would love if there's any other TODs who want to comment on that, or interpreters here, like the idea of helping to build students' self-confidence and ability to advocate is something that I think games would probably work nicely into, because you can present them with scenarios, and you can kind of put that again, that important situation in a more low risk environment for the students. So yeah, if anybody else has comments on that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, this is Danny. I'm actually writing an article right now to the Council of Exceptional Children on this topic, on how to bridge TODs, interpreters, and educational audiologists into a classroom, and how to work together. So I'm really glad Jane said that, because we were studying the mechanical energy of sound. And then as a TOD, I just thought, oh, this is a great opportunity to bring in audiograms and talk about different types of hearing levels, about, a conductive is going to be more mechanical, where just things like that we kind of naturally bridge together. And so the audiologist would be teaching sections, and we were there to support. And even the educational audiologist would stand up and role play. For example, if they're here, it's not if your hearing aid malfunctions, it's when, right? So what are you going to do? And so it really took the whole team coming together for that aha moment. But I agree. There's so much. This is STEM learning, but I see it so much more. Like it really is the catalyst for advocacy for combating linguistic overprotection. So it's not enough that we said photosynthesis and then we watched the interpreter sign this 1 minute long explanation about what photosynthesis is. No, now they have the sign, right? And so I just think that it's profound. We're moving past that, right? And so it really helps us continue pushing our students. But then as the specialists in our field, including educational audiologists, we think, what's next? It's never right then, but how do we push farther to that? Or for example, if an interpreter were to see that sign I would not know what that sign is in isolation. I had never seen, I mean, I would figure it out in context, but what would an educational interpreter do? How would they work with that consumer? And so even the opportunity to practice, like, oh, the interpreter doesn't know what that means. What are you going to do? Maybe they finger spell it. Maybe they show that word. Oh, we're talking about, the sun and the plants and how we breathe. I just think there's so much you can do with it. It just excites me. It's not too rigid where a teacher has to read a script, because I can't stand those, but it really gives us kind of a foundation to be able to mold it to students' needs. And I love that. Like I can think of so many instructional strategies and so much more potential too. It's just exciting to hear. And like Jane said too, I'm like, I'm the same. I'm on board. I'm like, yes, advocacy. How do we naturally embed this?
Yes, absolutely. And it sounds like it's a process, right? It's a team experience that students have to learn from the time they're really little, and they continue learning it into adulthood and onwards. So any tools that we can equip them with would be really, really helpful, I hope. And I'm just reading this comment in the chat. Yeah, wow. Very nice. Yep. And it is especially important, I think, for teens to start to do that, because they're going to slowly be, going to things more independently and not relying on their parents as much, and wanting that sense of independence too. I think there's this really critical self-confidence part of that, where if they're not able to advocate for themselves, that's going to be a blow to their self-esteem and to their self-image. So we want to promote that as much as we can.
Mona, I have a question in terms of like future. I know that this is a long-term project. I cannot even imagine. But thank you, Jane. Do you in the future see adding more like little sections of reading where perhaps, I know that they have programs that you can kind of hover over the word. The issue with that is our students don't always have the language to discriminate what conceptual sign. I guess my wonder is, do you see in the future having differentiated passages with those words where students can start not just seeing the word, say it's highlighted as a scaffold, next time it's not, but where they can see the sign and maybe they select the conceptual sign for that? I'm just curious if that is something that you guys have thought about.
Oh, absolutely. So we have been really excited to start working with some LLM and AI tools to kind of generate those paragraphs to begin with, and to have a system where, exactly like you said, actually, we have it highlighted and the student clicks on the word and the ASL sign that's, for that word, especially if it's one that has multiple meanings, comes up on the side. So that is a feature that we're really interested in developing out further. We also are trying to look at ways to make reading and writing as well, like producing the language a little bit more intuitive in these games. Right now, it's just, like I said, it is the vocab games and it is the content, but we also want to get it to the point where students are able to express themselves about what they've just learned. So whether that's through getting, them to be able to film themselves and to answer questions in sign, or to be able to kind of like write something, do paragraph passage answers. Those are all features that we've been considering and really would love all of your feedback on, because as we come out with them, we want to know what to prioritize and how to best build this for your classrooms.
Mona, can you just do just because we have a couple of people that joined us, and can you do the demo just one more time? And that way we can kind of practice or take notes of like, that way if there's teachers or interpreters that are like, okay, I just want to see this one more time. And I know I'm kind of the student that I walk away from class, it's gone. So if I could just have it emphasized one more time, I would be really grateful.
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and also, here is the link in the chat if anybody would like to follow along with us and create your own account. And we will go through this. Yeah. Okay. So just to quickly walk through this one more time. So you go to the teacher dashboard section first to set up your platform and log in. You can create your own classroom by just putting in the name of it. Maybe it's your second hour class, maybe it's by topic, however you want to organize that. And then within that, you can go ahead and create any of the assignments that are going to be based off of this curriculum library down here. So the curriculum library allows you to click through things from a variety of different topics. We're always adding new modules. So if there's something that you really want that you don't see here, just let us know and we'll try to get it out for you sometime in the future. And these different modules over here can all be found with the, if you want to just project it on your smartboard and you don't want to have like necessarily the assignment, your class can all kind of go through these things together. So each one of these modules is going to have a lesson video and some of the most important vocabulary words that are associated with that, plus the captions and the animations that go along with the ASL. And soon, if you do have students that are a little bit more LISL focused or that want to be able to just receive that audio feedback, we're also going to be having voiceovers in the future as well. So once you have all this going, you can go ahead and create an assignment here. So we were just looking at the introduction to the food chain module. You'll click and assign that same thing right here. And then on the student dashboard side, you can go over to that. And you can go ahead and click into the very same module that was just assigned. So introduction to the food chain, you'll see the vocabulary show up here on the right. And then this one, we've already gone through some of these pieces. So the pre-quiz over here is what the students would engage with first, allowing them to give you information on what they're coming into the baseline with. There's the flashcard section that comes next over here, where students are going to learn about the vocabulary word with an icon next to it, and with also the definition sign that's going to come up right here. And yeah, thanks, Danny. You can change the speed as well. So you can go ahead and, if your students just want to slow it down and really focus on what's going on, they can do that here as well and go through each one of the vocabulary words that way. And finally, they can then go into the arcade and practice all those vocabulary words at one of these 3 little arcade machines. So we demoed Maze Runner last time. I'll go ahead and demo the Sign It, Catch It one here. So over here, he is, I think this is, yep, that was pray. So he's going to sign a word right here, and the student catches the English word that's going to be falling from the sky associated with it. Sometimes an image is shown, sometimes a definition or it swaps out to the English is shown, but it's all about helping to develop that bilingual literacy for students. And so once they've done that, they go and they have to ace this post-quiz before they can then move on to watching the content and doing more content-related questions over here at the top. And so, as part of this demo, one of the things that we've been thinking about a lot as we develop this out is how we can make sure that content that we don't have available is still going to be something that you all can introduce here. Because we know that in the community, many people are already creating your own videos for kids. You know, you might be making vocabulary support videos, or ASL teachers who are specifically teaching to hearing students might be coming up with their own video library altogether. But none of this has really been consolidated before. So I'm going to go ahead and reshare on a different tab here, and show you guys two different options for assignment creators that can, you know, kind of upload your own videos and lessons and things for. And that way you guys can still have all those videos within the games that you saw. It'll follow that same map, but it will be your content or content from the community that, you know, you can access if there's, you know, somebody who Jane mentioned before, you know, archaeology. Maybe another teacher is going to upload a vocab packet about fossils. And even if our team didn't get to it, you can go and say, oh, someone from California uploaded, you know, 4 different vocabulary words about that, and I can put together a lesson using it. So let me go ahead and reshare. And Aisha, if you could drop the link to the survey in there, that would be super helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you guys remember before in the version of ASL Aspire that exists right now, if we just go to the teacher dashboard, if you want to assign something, we have this little creator button and we have these 3 different topics. You choose which topic you want and everything associated with that is assigned to your student. Now, as we've been thinking through things, we realized that, like I said, people might want to modify our existing assignments or create one completely new of their own. So this is what we call option A over here. So in this case, the assignment creator would have a template lesson that's, you know, similar to before, where you can hit photosynthesis and just hit assign and be done with it if you already like all the content that's there. Or you can come to this custom tab and go through and upload or record. You know, you don't have to record in a separate platform. You can do it right here. Your own lesson video for students. You then add in vocabulary words. Again, this can be your own or one that you're gonna, you know, grab from the community or anything of that sort. And the quiz questions that will make up that map that we were looking at earlier. Or if you want to modify one of our existing lessons, you go to this template plus custom tab and do the similar thing. So maybe you want to edit that ecosystems one we were talking about earlier. You can add in any optional content that you want your students to engage with. Maybe a supplementary video to explain carnivores more in depth. Maybe some vocabulary lists, you know, items that maybe, you know, could be supplemental for your students, or quiz questions that you want to know more about. And so this kind of tab through system is, again, what we're calling option A. And then on the other hand, we have this one over here, which we call option B. In this case, you hit the one that you're looking for. Again, you know, we'll go back to that ecosystems. You see a preview of the vocab that was in it. And you're only able to add and delete vocabulary in this case, because maybe, you know, lesson videos might be a little bit taxing. Quiz and answer, that's a lot of content to create. So in this case, it would be more about just purely creating assignments based on the vocabulary and definition videos that would be customized. And also you wouldn't have to necessarily work off of a template. You could go back and just make a custom one entirely from scratch. So in the survey, we are looking for your feedback on these 2 little demo pieces, option A over here with the different tabs on top, or option B here, which has just a one-way process where you choose the lesson and go through that way. We're looking to see which one is more intuitive, which one is easier, and also which pieces would be truly useful. You know, whether it's just vocabulary alone or if the whole set of things would be something better for classrooms. So if you all please could engage with that survey, we would super appreciate it. And we would also love to hear any thoughts or comments that you have in the chat, or if you want to unmute, you're welcome to do so.
Do we have any math teachers on this? Because I would be real. I've not taught math. I taught like a semester of math. It's just not my strength. I really like the science and the literacy, but I'm just curious from like a math teacher's perspective what this might look like, just because I don't teach it. Well, I'll have to get that answer later then because I am really curious.
Yeah.
Can I mention an unintended positive consequence of this platform as well?
Please. Yeah, we'd love to hear it.
So one thing I notice when I'm teaching students how to use VRI or VRS is that 2D viewing is a totally different skill. And so the stamina for students to access ASL in person is a lot less taxing than it is in 2D viewing. And this is, I'm a hearing person, to be clear. This is just something I hear from the deaf community and anecdotal observations myself. But even them getting practice on how to receptively understand something they're seeing on a screen, again, where technology is moving so quickly, and a lot of these students have not used video relay, I think it actually unintentionally helps them do that as well. And so that's kind of cool when it talk about stamina. And then the other thing I'll add as a comment is, Mona, like you said, I love that we're voting on, or not voting on, adding feedback about potentially adding videos. For me as a teacher, the workload feels so big sometimes, Mona. I feel like I'm drowning. And so to have the opportunity to go back and grade later and it be in one spot would be a dream come true, where I can kind of not be afraid. Everyone knows me, knows I lose everything. And especially if it's paper, I'm like, oh my gosh. So if it's in one spot, and I'm even thinking about finger spelling fluency, to be able to see students teaching finger spelling chunking and how to make sure that's clear, and then presenting the ASL STEM for that. There's so many exciting things. I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to fill out that survey now.
Fantastic. And we'll take just a couple minutes to let anybody who's filling that out do so, and we'll wrap up.
And I just wanted to add, thank you guys so much for all the feedback. And if you do fill out the survey, we'd love to give you 3 more months free of ASL Aspire so you can try out all the pro features. So I want to keep the survey anonymous. So if you do fill it out, please send your email in the chat and I will grant you access.
Will this be, just for clarity before I post this recording, would this be for anyone who watches it later or just those that are in this synchronous meeting?
Later as well, absolutely. Yeah.
So is it okay if I just tag the platform ASL Aspire so all of you could respond? And then just if there's any questions, as I don't want to overspeak. But if you guys could add, I'll let you guys share the survey because I just think that would probably be most appropriate. But I'm just so excited, guys. This is amazing. I have spent countless hours creating things. I can't even tell you. Most of my job is not even teaching sometimes. I feel like I'm doing more creating and problem solving than I get to do what I love, which is teaching. And so this is a great example of the deaf are here. They have this. It's just that making connections and networking, it just really benefits all. And most importantly, we want to see more deaf and hard of hearing in STEM fields. And I get chills. I want to see our students leading this workshop or something in the future. That would just be a dream come true.
Absolutely. We want to spotlight all of the amazing scientists in the deaf community who already exist, and also inspire the next generation to get to be there, to have that door open to them, whether or not they choose to go into STEM specifically. To be STEM literate is so important in today's world. And so as much as we can, kind of make that possible and make that more, level the playing field for students, that is what we set out to do.
Before we end our session, Mona, if someone had questions, how might they contact you and your team? What would be the best way for that?
Yeah, so they can email us at admin@aslaspire.com, or you can also reach out to us through our website. We do have a form through there. And I should also put in the chat, we also have contact@aslaspire.com is another way you can reach us. We would love to hear from you all. We would love to be able to connect more with the community, and we are always looking for feedback. So don't be shy and please reach out.
Oh, I see someone with their hand raised. Julia?
Hello, my name is Julia. I am currently an elementary interpreter, but I have subbed in middle school and high school as well. And I just wanted to put a little bit of feedback to attach to some of what was said about the audiologist. It would be amazing while you're working on that, whenever that happens, to also include just like basic nurse conversations that they have in school, because I have seen on all elementary, high school, and middle school, sometimes the kids, I feel like they get asked questions and then they get pressure and then they're just nodding their heads and they're not really giving what the issue is. So having more language to be able to express themselves, even in signs, so then I can say it, would be amazing. So just that there, but I'm super excited. I'm talking to all my teachers about it. So yeah, I hope to work with you guys soon.
Thank you so much, Julia. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. We really like the thought of being able to expand out into, like I said, the self-advocacy space, and especially with the medical system, because those students are going to be there. So yeah, thank you for that. All right, and so we are now officially at time. Thank you all so much for your feedback. That survey will stay open if anybody wants to complete it after the call. And including if you are watching this after the meeting has happened, the survey is open to you. We'll include a space for you to put in your email, and we'll reach out to you to give you that free 3 months of ASL Aspire as well. Thank you all so much. And Danny, thank you very, very deeply, bottom of my heart, for hosting this. It's been a pleasure to connect with you all.
Of course, and we are so grateful, and know that I will be blasting it to all the groups I can. So just be ready for a lot of emails.
We can't wait. We can't wait. Thank you so much. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Of course. All right, Mona, you did such a good job.
Thank you.
Great work. I'm so excited, and let me hit not record anymore. 1 second, manage recording. Stop recording.